Hello folks, I want to start doing some body work on this Astra Mark IV, and first of all I've taken the bumper off now. Most of the scuffs are on the actual bumper, so we've got that in the workshop. Let's start getting this prepared and let's get some paint on it where it needs some repairs. See you in a minute. Right, well I've got the front bumper on, and most of the damage on this that I need to have a look at and repair is on the lower Ermischer skirt part of it. So I've actually taken the front bumper off, and what we're going to do first is just have a little look around it, see what needs to be done, give it a clean, and then we'll take it from there. So let's have a little look around it and see what the problems are. Well, all in all, the bumper in itself is actually fine. It's got a few little paint marks on it. I'm hoping these are just tea cut out, so there's not a lot on there. It's just a bit of green algae on there. I'm sure all this will come off with a good clean, which we're going to do in a minute. Coming around to this side of the bumper, there is a couple of little scrapes there. Probably, yeah, there's nothing down there. That's all right. This is the main part of the bumper, you see. And this part here is the lower Ermischer skirt that's been put on it. So I may have to just tackle these little bits here. Those are the only ones on the actual bumper itself. But looking on the lower skirt, this was where most of the damage had occurred. You won't see the underside of this, but we're looking at the underside, obviously, where it's obviously hit low curbs or whatever. So I will address all this. So that's got to be sorted out. More scuffing along the bottom of the Ermischer skirt there, and again this side as well, because this obviously sits a lot lower. Yeah, there's a bit of paint fracture in there, so I'll have to just give that a little bit of a rub down and a sort out. And to be honest with you, there's a little bit there as well on the, it's again where the plastic's actually hit the curb probably, and it's bent the plastic, and it's sort of fractured the paint underneath, so I'll have to give that a bit of love as well. So that's got to be sorted. So first things first, I'm going to give it a rub down and a bit of a clean down, and then we'll come back to you and we'll start tackling all these areas. Right, that's a lot better now. We can see where we are now. So that's cleaned it all up, and I can actually see exactly where I need to treat now. The main part of the bumper is okay, as I say. I'm not going to spray the whole bumper here. We're just touching in the bits that are the worst, basically. So we're not going to give it a complete respray, otherwise we'll end up doing the whole blinking car. And this bumper is in good enough condition just to warrant us to repair the unsightly bits. So let's get the DA out now and get a bit of sandpaper. Well, let me show you around it first of all and show you what I've got to repair. So I probably will just do a little bit of sanding on that scuff there, just to get that off there, because that probably come off. That's a bit of black paint, I think, on that bit there. This is your main worst part here, which shows on the car on the lower spoiler. So we're going to be taking the DA to that, and I will paint the underside of this as well, just to bring all that in. Along the bottom there's a few scuffs which have got to be dealt with, and again same as here as well on this side, although this is not too bad this side. Most of the damage is below, but these fracture lines or spider lines there where the paint has actually cracked underneath the lacquer due to this being flexed. So that's just part and parcel of having a low spoiler on the front. So I will sand these down up to probably about there, and then, as I say, blow this bottom corner in. I want to try and stay off the main part of the bumper if I can. There is a little red mark there. That should come out with a bit of cutting compound. And as for little dings like this, I'm really not bothered about these. I'm not going to touch these at all. That's just normal little wear and tear marks. Right, so let me get the DA out now. We'll start attacking this and smoothing this out. Okay then, so I've just got a 180 disc on here, and we'll start just giving this a light sand down. Okay then, we've sanded it down now. We can see where we need little bits of filler along here, just where it's actually dug into the actual bumper itself. All along the bottom here is I've just feathered this out, and you can't actually feel that. So when we prime this, it should be okay. There is one scratch there, which I may just put a little bit of filler in because it's underneath. I'm not really too bothered. But all this now, where them other scratches were, I've just feathered them out. And again, same on the corner here, just a little bit of build up to do there with a little bit of filler, and along there, just along that edge. And also on this top profile here, this was the main part I was mostly concerned about, but here you can't feel anything, so the primer will take all that in. But there was obviously some sort of imperfection in the plastic, and that might have been the reason for it starting to crack, I don't know. But I'll have to put some filler in there. And also that little bit up there, there's a little scuff which went into the plastic as well, so I'll just put a little bit in there. The rest of the little dots in there, all that, I'm not really too bothered about, as I said to you. Like for this, for example, there's a tiny little dot there, which is a white dot. All I'll do afterwards, I'll go over and I'll just put a little dab of the paint in there with a very minute paintbrush, just to colour correct it. And it's the same with all along here. You've got tiny little dots like that. I'm not going to rub down the whole bumper because, I mean, you've got to draw the line somewhere at the end of the day. And bearing in mind, this isn't going to be a complete refurbishment of this bumper. It's just a tidy up. So that's what we're going to do now. So I'm going to wipe this over now with a wax and grease remover, mix some filler up and just spread it out in where I need it. And I'll come back to you in a second. All right, I'm going to get some of this P38 body filling out. Just give it a good mix up. Sometimes you get a residue that looks like it's oil in there or something like that, but you have to mix all that in because that's all part of the actual chemicals that separate when they stand for a while. So just make sure you do mix all that in, and don't forget it, because it could be an essential part of the filler, you see. So right, I don't need too much of this, I don't think. So let's get a bit out like that. There we go. Put that there. Gulf water of P, that's what they say. There you go. That's near enough, right, isn't it? None of us ever measure it. And get your scraper. And I tend to drag this out rather than stir it up, because it keeps the air bubbles down to a minimum. You're going to get air bubbles. We might have to fill this a couple of times, so all we're looking for is to get that pink so that it's all the way through rather than seeing streaks of it, you know. You can see the air bubbles there as I'm pulling it backwards. So you're never going to get rid of them, so you just got to keep playing with it and just keep the pink gone. Now you've got to be pretty smart with this stuff, because if you do tend to put too much hardener in, or it's a very warm day, this stuff will go hard within about 4 minutes, so you don't have much playing time. So be pretty swift with it. Have everything prepared, everything wiped down, and there we go. I'm happy with that. I can't see that pink anymore. Right, so we're not looking for perfection. Definitely not in the first coat. All I'm looking at is just covering the areas that need it. You put too much on, you'll be rubbing it down forever. There we go. Pretty happy with that. Tiny little bit there. There we go. Not too much. A little smidgen there. And a little smidgen on that corner. There we go. Okie dokie. I only need a thin bit there. There we go, that's it, just to fill that little crack in there. A tiny bit up here. There we go. Again around the corner. Trying to bend that as well as to get the curve, you know. That's where these plastic spatulas are quite handy. There we go. As I said, don't forget, we're going to probably need to go over this again. I can feel this just starting to go off now. And a little bit up there. There we go. I think that's it. Just a little bit along here, I think. Just a little bit around there like that. There we go, just in that little crease there. Yeah, just starting to go off now. I'm going to leave it alone because you don't want to start spreading filler that's just going off. Right, that's it then. We'll let that go off. As I say, that's taken probably about 4 or 5 minutes. That's just on the turn now, that filler. Look, it's just starting to pull apart when you spread it. Leave that like that, and then I'm going to go and have a cup of tea, and I'll see you in a minute. Right, okay, I've had my cup of tea. It's been about 30 minutes now. This has gone off enough for me to now sand. Let's show you what it's like. So it's dry to the touch. It's probably still, you could get your fingernail maybe just in it, but obviously it is hard enough to sand now. It hasn't got to be absolutely rock hard. So I'm going to attack this now with just a little bit of 80 grit. I'm not going to do it with the DA. I'm going to do it with my hands. So I'm going to start sanding this down. So I'm going to use this sponge rubber block as a backing block. Just fold it around there. And just lightly go. I don't want to damage any of this, so I'm going to keep me sanding down to a minimum. I don't want to obviously put me 80 grit scratches in all this, so I'm just going to keep to where I need to go. Again, I'm not rubbing hard, I'm just literally using the paper to do the cutting. And when I'm nearly where I want to be, I'll change papers. Right, so I'm quite happy with that at the moment, that lower part. So I'm going to change to a 180 paper now. There we go, and I'm going to freestyle it. Now again, I'm just looking at feathering edges in and taking out them scratches. Again, light strokes, you haven't got to rub hard. If you've got clean paper, you don't need to rub hard. Look at that, coming down now. And when you rub your hand over it, you don't want to feel anything. I can feel a little bump there, that's where that filler's on top there. Right, we're getting there now. I'll do a bit more and I'll come back to you when I've finished. Right, okay then, so I've gone over it with 80 grit, and then when I got near to it, I've taken it back with 180 grit, and then I've just sanded it down in them areas. I've given it a little bit of a wash down. Let's show you where we've got to with it. So right, there we go. Now when I rub my hand over that, I can't really feel anything. So you can probably see the little scratches underneath there. They've been filled up with the filler, and there's little very, very thin bits of filler over the top where the edges might have been needed feathering, but we can leave that as it is. As long as I rub my hands over it and I can't really feel anything, I'm happy with that. Now what we have to do now, I've just wiped this down and dried it off, but this is where a lot of people go wrong. They don't sort of dry it off properly. Now what I tend to use is a hot air gun, and it really dries the thing off properly. So before you put any paint on, let's show you. Can you see the water evaporating away? There we go, look. Can you see it creeping away? Look at that, chasing the water away, look. There we go. All the way down. And do it all over. Because you don't want any moisture where you're painting. Look at that, chasing it away, look. So just go over all your parts where you need to. There we go. Oh, missed a bit there, look. Missed a bit of filler there. We'll have to go over that bit. So this is all dried. I've already dried this bit off. So I've actually missed a bit of filler there, so I'll do that bit in a second. But you get the idea. Rubbing your hands over this now, it's lovely and smooth. All over there. Now we've probably got a few little pinholes. I can see a couple of little pinholes in that bit of filler there, for example. Depending what type of primer you're using will depend whether or not that gets filled in or not. So don't forget, as I said to you before, this isn't the finished job. We've got to prime it, and then we'll see how it lays with the primer on, and then we might have to put some spot putty in or just give it a light bit of filler again. But basically now that's all dry. I'm where I need to be with it. There's that bit at the top there, which is now feathered in. So once we prime that, we should be okay. So we're down to 180 scratches here at the moment. So the filler, or decent filler, should be able to fill 180 scratches. What you will find, if you just get normal rattle can primer, that's normally not thick enough, and you'll see all the lines and everything come through. You'll probably need really multiple coats of rattle can primer, not unless you buy a filler primer in a rattle can. Because this is only a little job, I'm going to be using a rattle can, but I'm using a, it's the black on it. Where's the filler primer? Sorry, this one here. I'm using an acrylic high build primer here. This should give me a good enough finish. And I mean, obviously, if I was spraying a whole bumper, I wouldn't be using something like this at all. Not out of a rattle can. I'd be doing this with a high build primer and then sanding it back. So, but I'm going to give it a go with this for the moment. Again, light coats, you don't want to be going heavy with this stuff. Most people want to spray too much on too quickly. You want a quick bond coat first of all, and then build your layers up. So that's what I'm going to do now. Right folks, as you can see now, I've given it a good dry off now. I'll give it a good dust down. I'll give it a good mask up, and I'm just going to go around the areas where I'm going to be putting some primer, and just go over with a scuff pad. This is a grey Scotch-Brite pad, because we're just preparing the area for accepting some paint now. So I'm just going to go around, not the whole bottom part of the bumper, just the areas where I'm painting, and just a little bit beyond them, because eventually what I will do, I'll go over the whole lower part of the bumper with the scuff pad. That's for when we're going to lacquer the whole bumper, but I just want to get a nice little key around the area where we're going to be putting some primer. Just a little bit further out than where the 180 scratches are, basically. And I've also got my little infrared heater switched on as well, just to warm it up a little bit in here. I have had the paint standing in a bowl of warm water as well. Right, so that's nicely scuffed up there. Again, this is more of a sort of a DIY repair, but using similar principles that they'd use in a body shop. And that final little bit there, again, keep your scratches to a minimum, but as I said, this is just a Scotch-Brite pad. You could actually Scotch-Brite everything, all that, which I will do in the future when we come to lacquer, and that will accept the lacquer perfectly. So don't worry about minute scratches that a Scotch-Brite pad is putting in it, because the lacquer will take all that in. Right, that's it. So I'm going to go over the thing now with some panel degreaser, panel wipe, whatever you want to call it. I'll just use a generic one I get from eBay. Just put some on there. And literally go over the whole panel with your panel wipe. And that'll take off all the dust and prepare it for spraying. Find a little bit there. And that's it already. So although you can still see all them little scratches there, and there's a couple of pinholes in there, when you use a decent filler primer, that should fill all this in. So don't worry too much about trying to get everything at this stage of the game right down low. But you basically want a just nice smooth transition. So that's what we've got there. So I'm going to start putting on some primer first. So let's get on with it. Again, nice thin coat. Right, and that's all we need to do for the first coat. So as you can see, we haven't gone too mad. It's not, we're not looking for full coverage at all. We just literally got a coat on there, and that will hopefully make it bond. And then we'll go over the whole lot afterwards. I've got a bit more there I've got to do, so let me just do that. There we go. That's it. That's all I need to do. A bit more there. That's it. And that's it. So I'll give that another 3 to 4 coats. If it was filler primer, you get like Leclerc green TI. If it was something like that, that's a lot thicker. You'd only need 1 or probably 2 coats at the maximum of that. But this being rattle can paint, even though it's a high build primer, it is a lot thinner than the spray gun type paint. So I'll be putting 3 to 4 coats of this on. But I say you've got to let it dry in between hands. You can use a heat gun like this, and that again aids the drying. Or you can just stand it in front of a heater, or you can dry it out in the sun. But the weather's cold outside, it's 10 degrees outside, so we're making use of speeding it up with things like this. Right, I'll see you in a minute. I'm going to get this done, get another 3 coats on, and I'll come back to you. Right folks, there we go. I've given that 4 coats of primer now, and it's taken nicely. So I've got to let this go off for a good few hours now before I give it a slight rub down, and then we'll go over it with the base coat. So it may need a couple of little bits in it still, a little bit of touching up with some spot putty. I don't think you see there's just a couple of little pinholes in it there, but all we do, we get a spot putty, just go over that with a bit of spot putty, and that sorts it all out. All the bottom there is all taken in nicely, so we're happy with that. And also around this side as well, where we was all scuffed up, is all taken in nicely as well. But all in all, that's 4 coats on there now, and all the rest of the bumper, as you can see, is all masked up, so we ain't going to be spraying none of that at all. So the only bit of blending we've got to do on the main part of the bumper, if I come around here, is this bit here. So when I do eventually come to put the colour on and I take this off, I will sort of feather this out a little bit further with the Scotch-Brite pad once I've rubbed this down, and go over the whole, probably up to about there, because we're going to be blending the lacquer in sort of to there. I'm sure you'll agree now that that looks a hell of a lot better than what it did before. So we'll let that go off now, and then I'll come back to you a bit later on. Okay, folks, it's the next day now, and Jimmy came in last night, and he had a look at it, and he said, just go over it with the Leckler TI primer at the end. So that's actually what we've done here. We give it 2 coats of Leckler TI primer, give it a slight rub down, and I've remasked it up. I've waxed and grease removed it, and I've scotched all this that you can see with a Scotch-Brite pad. So all that's been done with a Scotch-Brite pad all the way around here. Now, as you can see, what I've done here, this has all been feathered in now. As you can see, the primer's all sort of feathered in there. But what I've done, I've taken it right back to there, and I've only just sort of loosely put the paper on there, because that's where I'm going to have to blend in the lacquer. So the colour, what I'm going to do with the colour is to take the colour probably out to about here, around about, just out to about there sort of thing. But all this has been Scotch-Brited, as I said, with a Scotch-Brite pad. So the colour will go to around there, or as far as I need to go, and then the lacquer will blend out probably to about there. So I'll be flicking the lacquer out, bearing in mind all this has been Scotch-Brite padded as well, all scuffed up with a Scotch-Brite pad. And if you don't know what a Scotch-Brite pad is, this is a Scotch-Brite pad. It's like a scourer. This is the grey one. They come in different grades, grey, red and green. The red one's more coarse, the grey one's just enough for scuffing up paintwork, for applying lacquer and stuff like that. So all that might look a bit scuffed up and all that, but don't worry about that, as I say, because that's been, as soon as you put the lacquer on that, it'll all sort of come shiny. So I'm going to lacquer the whole lot up to there where I've actually put I put a little thin bit there. That's where I was going to take the lacquer out to, but obviously I'm going to be flicking the lacquer out there. The colour's got to go all around here, obviously, so the colour will overspray onto this bit here. And all this is obviously going to be colour underneath. I may colour the whole lot there. I probably will, because that's the older grey primer I put underneath that. So that's going to be all right. And coming around here, this has all been covered in because we've got no marks on that. So literally it will be a colour and then a lacquer the whole lot. So the whole bottom skirt basically is going to get colour and lacquer. And this bit here is only going to get sort of colour in this area and lacquer that near enough that whole section there. Right, so this is the colour I've got. Now, a lot of you said this was Starlight Silver, but it isn't Starlight Silver. The code on the car was, is it 4AU in the door jamb sort of thing, and it come out as Silver Sunlight. They had to make it up with the copy of the wing. I sent the wing down there because the 5 shades, we had their shade cards initially and tried to match it up, and it was nowhere near. So we had to send the wing in to get colour matched with their light gun or whatever. And this colour they've mixed up, they reckon they've got a 98% colour match, which is very, very high. But I'm looking in the tin here. I don't know if you can see this, can you? That looks totally different than the actual car. This looks like a grey colour. But rest assured, they reckon they've done the right mix, so I can't do nothing but to go with it. So we'll put this in the gun now. This is a water-based base coat. Let me show you it. There we go. It's a Vauxhall 4AU Silver Sunlight water-based base coat. Now I've got 250 millilitres here. Let's put this straight in the gun. It's already been thinned and ready to go. So people do ask what my equipment is. This gun is my DeVilbiss SRI Pro, which is a spot repair gun basically. I've got a 1mm tip in this. It's a HVLP gun, and I'm just going to pour this straight into there, obviously through a filter. So let's do that now. Right, okay, leave that there at the moment. Okay then, so I'll be spraying at 2 bar, which is about 28 PSI. So I'm just going to get my mask on and then we'll give it a go. Right, okay, that's just the first coat, only a very light coat. I'm going to give that 10 or so minutes just to dry off, and then we'll give it another 2 or 3 coats, and that'll be it then. All right, just turn the fan off for a minute. Right, okay. That's 2 coats now. I've been helping it along with the old hot air gun. All I've been doing is sort of just going over it like that when I come back after 10 minutes, because it's a little bit cool in here. This just helps sort of flash it off a bit quicker. So I've been doing a bit of that. So that's 2 coats now. So what I'm going to do is let this go off now, probably for about 15 or 20 minutes, because it's to say it's about, what's the temperature in here? It's about 15 degrees. It's a little bit cool, as I say, so I'll let it go off for 20 minutes. Normally after 10 minutes, you give it another coat. So that's 2 coats as I said. Now the coverage is pretty good now. So the final coat I'm going to do is going to be a lot lighter coat now, called a drop coat, because this is metallic. From a little bit higher up and just sort of flick it about sort of thing. But I think you'll agree, that is actually a very good colour match. Let me try and show you. All in all, I'm pretty happy with that colour match. That's a fantastic colour match, to be honest with you. I was a bit doubtful when it was in the tin because it looks too dark, but it just shows you, doesn't it? You can't really tell once you stir up their metallic. So, yeah, that's a little bit tricky getting in there. You see me spend a bit of time in there trying to get all in there, make sure you get all the angles covered sort of thing. You're only pressing the trigger lightly when you're going in there because, obviously, very easy to sort of get runs in them sort of areas, so very light trigger press in there. And I'm not even pressing the trigger full down, I'm just sort of dusting it on basically. So light coats is the way to go. Don't try and whack it on heavy and get everything done in one coat, because these were never put on like that originally when they painted originally. So it's coats is the way to go. Right, okay folks, one more coat, and I won't show you that. I'll show you that when I get to lacquering, which will be very shortly. Right folks, it's been another 20 minutes. I've given it another coat, so it says 3 coats in total. The last one literally just being a light dusting over coat, and I'm happy with the results. So I've mixed up my clear coat now. Let me show you what I use. So I use this Maxmir Clear 0200, and there's the hardener which I'm using with it as well. And what I've done is mix this 2 to 1, so 2 parts of this to 1 part of that. I've got my scales there. I had 90 grams of the lacquer and 45 grams of the hardener, and just tip one into the other, give it a good stir up, and it's ready. Right folks, it's the next day now. This has gone off, and we're ready to put it back on the car. I'm not going to buff it now. We're going to put the wing back on, and we're going to put the bumper back on, and we're going to get it buffed up afterwards, because the front wing's still got to be repaired. But I want to test drive this car to see if we've actually cured the running issues, which you've probably seen in the previous videos. Let's have a closer look at it. So as you remember, all down here we had them scuffs and everything. So this is original colour on the wing, although we did lacquer it. And that's where we done that blend in there. We just painted that panel there because we had a deep scratch in the plastic there, as you remember. The colour seems to have gone on nicely, look. I don't know whether you can see any transition. I only painted to around there sort of thing, look, around this sort of area. So you can't really see a good transition there. And also the lacquer, the fade out, which I've done, this is original. I didn't paint this here. And we faded the lacquer out to about up here somewhere. And I think you'll agree it's faded in pretty nicely. Although once this is all buffed up, you will get like the proper shine on it sort of thing, because we haven't done nothing to this at the moment. So yeah, just having a look around it. There we go. All this is perfect. Well, I say perfect. It's good enough. Let's put it that way. All underneath the skirt, which was all damaged before, as you remember. All along there, we had all scuffs. Literally all the way along here, we had scuffs. All around there, we had scuffs as well. And I think there was a few marks along this side as well. Don't forget, we didn't paint here. All this is the original bumper. I had all this covered up, so we literally just painted the splitter here. All in all, I'm pretty pleased with that colour match there. I mean, I'm going by there because that's the original paint there, as I said to you. And I can't really see a deep change in colour anyway. So yeah, along there, look, that's where the blend is. I think the blend's around here somewhere for the lacquer, somewhere around here. So yeah, I'm happy with that. Right, here we are back at the front then. So without further ado, I'm going to put you on a bit of time lapse just to whack this wing on, whack the bumper back on. It's just started to rain out here, so I want to get it done pretty swiftly. So see you in a minute. Right, let's get it jacked up. I've put the wheels back on.
No, jack down.
Jack down, I mean. Well, I've got to jack it up to jack it down, Sharon. Can you pull that, there's an axle stand that side in a minute. Can you pull that one out? Let's get him doing something, eh? Right, you should be able to get it out now. Right, let me drop that one down. All clear?
Yeah, it's away.
Now we've got to do this one this side. So get round here. Eh? There we go. Right, you got the lock, you got the wheel thing there?
What wheel thing?
The tighten the wheels up with.
No.
Get it out.
Where is it?
I thought I left it
That's in the back of that.
in the back of where?
The long bar.
My car, baby. Look, I've got Sharon involved, look. Right.
I passed the tool at all.
Pass the tool at all. I know what's the bigger tool, Sharon.
Wrong way.
He's undoing it. Look, don't take them off again.
Passed the tool at all.
Yeah, I know. What do you think of your bumper, baby?
Lovely jubbly.
What body shop was that from?
Eh?
What body shop?
Butler's Body Shop. Yeah?
No, it's called Restoring, Retrorestore, yeah?
You tell him, Sharon.
I will.
So we're going to buff and polish that together when we do the wing, so that's not a problem. But I think the colour match is actually
Oh, I should have got them off.
pretty good.
Done them.
Yeah, that's another job, Shell. That's another job. They've got to be sanded back, obviously, and done. Go and do the other side. Come on, I'm muck about.
Bank holiday, you know.
Bank holiday? Oh, of course it is, yeah. No, it's not. It's bank holiday weekend. So, as I say, we've just put that wing back on for the moment. This side hasn't been sprayed, as you well know, so it's only the lower skirt that's been sprayed. And I think you'll agree that, all in all, it's a lot tidier. If we look at that now compared to what it was. And don't forget that had a ding there, which we've now sorted out. And it's a little bit up here, a little bit orange peely, but I'm not worried about that because when we buff and polish that and cut that back, that'll all shine like a good one. So there we go. All right, folks, I think that's a half-hour video, or just over half an hour. Half an hour. So I'm going to leave this video here now. Obviously, got loads more to do on this car, but this was the thing I really wanted to get done. This was quite an ugly thing. I know the wing on the other side still needs sorting out, but again, that's not a problem. But this was the main thing, and we've done it ourselves. Nice little cheap repair there. That paint cost £25, by the way. I think it was 250 millilitres, and I've got well over half of it left, so there you go. So I should have enough to do that wing, probably, just blow that corner in, and also the little dents around the car as well. Anyway, thanks very much, folks. Don't forget, if you do like this video, check out this playlist up here. This is the playlist on this car, which we was going to do to flip. I've done quite a few jobs on it at the moment. I've spent about £285 on it at the moment. So the main bit's going to be cleaning. The next part you're going to see, I've got some other service items. Because we're keeping the car, there's other things I'm going to do. I'm going to revamp the front brakes, for example. I'm going to have rebuild kits on the calipers and all that. They're looking a bit crusty. So yeah, there you go. Thanks very much. If you do like my channel, don't forget, hit the subscribe button down there and ring that little notification bell. Set your preferences to all. That way you ought to get notified every time I upload a video. You ain't pulling faces in the background, are you?
I can see the camera.
Good, that's it. Get off scene. It's not your video. Thanks very much, folks. I'll see you in the next video, and until then, bye for now.